This is a hybrid meeting taking place in the Williston Town Hall, virtually on Zoom. All members of the board and public can communicate in real time. All votes taken in this meeting will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. If Zoom crashes, the meeting will be continued to January 22nd, 2024, although it doesn't appear anybody is participating by Zoom, so Zoom could crash and we will continue in this case unless somebody joins. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance of DRB members participating tonight. Nate Andrews. He is not here. Paul Christensen is not present. Lisa Braden Harder.
Present.
Scott Riley. Here. Dave Turner.
Here.
John Hemmelgarn is not present. The chair is present. We have 4, which is the minimum required for a quorum, so we can proceed. Okay. First up is the public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone participating in the audience tonight to address the board on topics not on tonight's agenda. So this is the portion where you can address us on topics that are not warned. Is there anyone interested in addressing the board? Hearing none, we'll segue into the public hearing. Tonight we've got 4 items on the agenda. First up is DP 24-11, which is a pre-app for an 81,000 square foot commercial mini storage facility on Shunpike. Would the applicant come forth, please? Patrick and Nick, would you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Patrick O'Brien, 193 Industrial Avenue, Williston.
Nick Smith, 193 Industrial Avenue, Williston, Vermont.
Great. Welcome, gentlemen. Staff goes first.
That's me. Okay, so this is a request for pre-application review at 269 Shunpike Road in the IZDW, also known as Lot 5 of the Robert subdivision. The lot is currently undeveloped. It has that unusual shape you see in that sort of grey blob there, surrounded by the what we call the conservation land and a flagpole reaching down Shunpike Road. The applicant is proposing an 81,000 square foot mini storage facility and driveway. There are no on-site staff. Instead, customers gain access with a self-service kiosk at the entrance and or card reader, and is proposed to secure the site with a fence and the slope of the land. So staff is recommending approval. The DRB should just discuss a couple of issues, landscaping and the bike ped lane, and amend the recommendations accordingly. The DRB may recall that about a year ago, they reviewed a pre-app on this parcel for about 50,000 square feet of commercial and industrial buildings. That development did not proceed. We did get one comment letter from a butter, the UVM Medical Center. The applicant did actually follow up direct with the abutter to iron out the minor issues raised, and we did include that correspondence for your packet, and it's online as well. So we anticipate compliance with the dimensional standards of the bylaw, so the likes of the height limit, the road setback, and the minimum lot frontage. Moving on to access and connectivity. There was a traffic study completed for the Robert subdivision back in 2019-2020, which estimated 39 peak trips associated with this lot. These mini storage facilities are very low PM peak trip generators, so we're not recommending a traffic study at this stage because it's extremely unlikely that they're going to exceed that or in fact generate any significant trips. The applicant's proposing to build their very short segment of the multi-use path along Shunpike Road that's gradually taking shape down there. And then lastly, might be able to see from that image, this is a very long driveway, about 450 feet from the curb to the Shunpike Road, from the entrance to Shunpike Road. Last time around, the DRB did recommend some sort of designated lane for pedestrian and bicyclist use. This is obviously a different proposal, one that generates fewer trips. So that might be worth just seeing whether that's something the DRB wants to reapply or can dispense. In terms of parking, we do anticipate compliance with the standards. You've got a lot of discretion on setting parking requirements for industrial uses, and the 2 car parking spaces they're proposing in line with what we've sort of been approving on similar things elsewhere. And then just also as a minor point, we're sort of recommending you waive the bike parking requirements for this application, based on the fact that most people will probably be transporting stuff, so won't be on their bike. Guess we could ask for a cargo bike parking, but it's not in our bylaw. So in terms of maintenance, again, we do anticipate compliance. What I pointed out earlier, the applicant has corresponded with the neighbour at UVM Health and is proposing a minor tweak, a discretionary permit, just to resolve their concerns about snow storage. So they'll be picking that up when they submit for discretionary. Probably the main thing just for the DRB to think about is the landscape buffer to the adjoining property. So you can see the residential property to the south, or the lower part of that driveway there. We do require between industrial and residential uses sort of a minimum 23 feet wide. That would be a type 2 dense planting. The applicant can reduce that by 25% by including a fence of at least 5 3/4 feet in height, which gets them down to just over 17, which will fit within there. We are recommending both those just to screen the residential property from sort of noise and headlights. One thing of note is that they do have equal sort of width on either side. So there's 18 foot to the top side, the west side of the driveway. So the applicant might want to consider just shifting that over, give a little bit more breathing space between the traffic and the neighbour, and also enable them to fit some of their infrastructure in there on the bottom side of the road. Turning to the remaining buffers, generally speaking, you've got a 13-foot with UVM, which is acceptable. There's a couple of minor pinch points where the buffer is less than what's stipulated in the table of 36 feet. It's noted that there is a lot of vegetation here with the conserve lot, and they're well outside the watershed protection buffers. So that might be something that we just want to grant a little bit of flexibility on, a discretionary permit. It's really minor. It's sort of at closest, though, about 28 feet against a 36-foot requirement. Recommending they provide a street tree. Probably just adjusting the landscaping closest to the street, bringing it forward in line with the other street trees along Road there. And then lastly, on outdoor lighting, they are proposing security lighting for the units. These are all motion activated, which is great. The discretionary permit just does set out that we'd like to know how the timers work and whether they're controlled by some sort of central software. And then lastly, just another point, the bylaws for security lighting do set a limit of average illumination of 1.5 foot candles at 1.8. So just bringing that down into compliance with that. So that's it. What follows is a recommendation to approve with some draft recommendations for the DRB there.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Can you display, please, that access road and the landscape buffer, please?
Yep.
Great. Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Let's do it.
Describe what you're planning to do there, please.
We're planning to shift the driveway away from the residential parcel there. So originally we had set the road on the center, anticipating further utilities. This was kind of part of an initial design. We left it there, and we wanted to make sure that the DRB was in agreement with us that because of the property to the west being a similar use, that we could shift that, minimize that buffer, expand on the residential one. So sounds like we're all in agreement.
I think we're all aligned on that. Now, describe what you envision for planting along the east side of that road.
Yeah, I think first off, we've already internally adjusted this. It leaves a lot more of the existing vegetation, number one, which is nice. We still anticipate having the same buffer type that we're showing, which is a pretty intense buffer type with the trees and the undergrowth and all of that. And then if the DRB is making a recommendation on fencing still being implemented between the residential, I don't think we have a problem with that necessarily.
Okay. Great. Do you have anything else to supplement staff's report?
I would just maybe bring up the multi-use path. Well, actually not the multi-use path, the bike lane. I think we're providing 24 feet of pavement width. It's a lot of width for two vehicles, bikes, I think it's sufficient generally. So we would ask that, and we also don't perceive very many bikes using this facility. Right. So we would ask for a waiver or to exclude the requirement there for that. Again, the same with the long-term, short-term bike parking. We appreciate that comment by the staff. I think we would also request maybe minor variation from the landscape buffer around the facility since, as Simon pointed out, this is totally encompassed by Class 2 wetlands, so a pretty high priority one as well for the state. So there won't be any development within that as a condition actually of the wetland permit with the Robert subdivision. So, and then as far as the outdoor lighting goes, I think we're already kind of taking a look and we want to scale back on some of the lighting anyway. We looked at other facilities in the area. We're probably providing double the lighting that most facilities do. So although it is, going to be timer or motion sensor combination, I think we can still scale it back quite a bit and be sufficient. So I think really that kind of addresses most everything on our end.
Okay. DRB members, questions?
The only question I have is traffic going to be both two-way flow through both roads going to the back section? Or is one side going to be one way in and one way out?
One way. There won't be a connection to any of
So the in and out is the same road.
Yes.
Scott?
Staff mentioned that you worked out the differences with the hospital next
Yes.
door. I didn't see that in the pack. Did I miss that?
It is online, but
It was in my packet.
It was in my packet too.
Okay.
just via email, you might see it. But
Okay.
generally,
why don't you
I'll just run through it really quick. Yeah, they were a little slightly concerned about security,
Yeah,
but
I read their letter.
yeah. So we just kind of provided what we think we're gonna have maintenance staff or security staff that just comes through once a day at least because we want to minimize anything that's not within a unit as well. We're providing fencing around the majority of the facility. The other areas really are inaccessible. And then as far as the snow, stormwater, we satisfied their comment there pretty easily. And the snow storage was the big one that they had to hang up on. And it really came down to, we just said maybe we can add a catch basin, capture anything that could possibly for some reason be trapped between our property line and their property, and it could make its way there. But we're like 3 or 4 feet of elevation below, so I really don't foresee that anyway. But you know how snow banks, snow storage can kind of get wonky sometimes. So
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Members of the public, any questions? DRB members, any last thoughts, questions? Comments? Okay, we're gonna close DP 24-11 at 7:15. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, next up is DP 24-12, Wayne Merrill and Company. This is a subdivision of a 4-acre parcel on James Brown Drive. Come on up. Good evening. If you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Ethan Merrill and 137 James Brown Drive.
Brian Courier, Larry Brick Civil Associates, 13 Corporate Drive.
All right, welcome. Staff goes next.
Me again. So this is a request for pre-application review at 137 James Brown Drive in the Gateway Zoning District North. The parcel is currently developed with an auction house, parking lot, and some storage containers, which you can see there. The applicant's proposing a 3-lot subdivision with enough information to sort of review the site plan at pre-app stage for lot 2. So just briefly, what will become lot 1 will contain the existing warehouse on a smaller lot, as well as a new access to James Brown Drive shared with lot 2. Lot 2 will contain a warehouse with its own parking and also an access road leading onto lot 1. And then lot 3 will be a sort of blank slate. At present, there's no detailed proposals for that lot, which will have its own access. If it's subsequently taken forward as its own lot, it would need to go through both pre-app and discretionary review. So staff is recommending approval of the pre-app with recommendations. The DRB should discuss parking, noise and landscaping to help finalise the recommendations for the applicant. We did receive 2 comment letters at the time of mail out, which were included in the packet, both from people on Shirley Circle, raised concern over the lack of detail on proposals for lot 3, any additional noise and disturbance from the warehouse, activity on the existing property, potential impact on trees, and the visual impact. We do anticipate compliance with the dimensional standards of the bylaw. No outdoor storage is shown for the warehouse. One thing is that the existing auction house was, its current site plan is somewhat dated and it doesn't have any outdoor storage areas shown. That is non-conforming. You need to show that on the site plan. So as you're probably well aware, the DRB can correct non-conformities where they're reasonably proportionate to the scale of development. And we are recommending that the applicant do delineate those storage areas at discretionary permit, just to make sure they're outside of any setbacks or buffers. Speaking of non-conforming, because it is quite old, it's non-conforming in several areas. These are discussed in more detail in the relevant sections of the report, and we are recommending a few corrections for the DRB to consider. Turning to the administrative aspects or the bureaucracy, this is sort of one pre-app that covers the subdivision and the site plan for lot 2. We're recommending that it take forward 3 separate discretionary permits. One to cover the subdivision of the parent parcel and for the new driveway in lot 1 and any non-conformities that the DRB wants to correct. One discretionary permit for lot 2 warehouse, and then pre-application review for any proposals for lot 3 once the applicants figured out what they would like to do there. Vehicular access is taken directly to James Brown Drive, which is compliant for each lot. WDB 13.3 does require development to provide safe access for bikes and pedestrians to at least one entrance. So the shared access drive does serve 2 parcels, and we're recommending that a sidewalk be provided down the front of the warehouse building to link it to James Brown Drive. That sort of ties in with the Historic and Design Advisory Committee's recommendation, and also our own recommendation on a sidewalk along James Brown Drive. So that green line there going down the front of the warehouse shows the sort of pedestrian and bike access. We're not recommending a traffic study as the auction house is existing and warehouses generate few trips. Lot 3, given the uses allowed in this area, there's GZDN, is pretty unlikely to be a high trip generator, but the DRB would have the opportunity to revisit that at pre-app if they wanted. Parking. The existing auction house is going to be left with 35 spaces. That's pretty unique use. So a discretionary permit, we're just recommending that the applicant confirm that that is suitable and whether any shared parking is necessary on auction days with the warehouse. The applicants are also proposing 33 spaces for lot 2. As I mentioned earlier, the DRB does have a lot of discretion in setting parking standards for industrial uses, using 1 per 1,000 square feet as a starting point. So I think it might be helpful if maybe the applicant just elaborate on how we got to that parking provision. The DRB might want to decide that, either it's acceptable, maybe it should be reduced, or maybe they could use one of the measures set out in WDB 14.2.4. I realise in preparing today that a solar canopy is probably not going to fly in the Velco easement, but EV charging stations might be workable. So just one for the DRB to have a small discussion on there. Pedestrian and parking lot circulation. This again ties back to the green line we were recommending down the front of the building. We're anticipating compliance with the bicycle and parking and end-of-trip facilities. The new warehouse on lot 2 should be fully compliant. The auction house probably has none of those because it was developed before these standards were in place. My suggestion for the DRB was to provide a short-term bike parking space, but as there's no major additional change of use for the auction house, sort of going inside that building to deliver long-term parking or an end of trip might not be reasonable. On-site infrastructure. The Department of Public Works has identified that the force main connection wouldn't be acceptable to them. So that's something for the applicant to think about. They might need to investigate connecting to the pump station, which I think is located about 2 parcels north of them and is in private ownership. Something that has come up with the DRB a couple of times before is that you may recall it's the Sally's Way development on Mountain View Road. The applicant had to negotiate with Meadow Run HOA to get connections to their pump station. So the applicant's in a similar situation there. The sidewalks, you might remember that blue line across the front of it. Sort of DRB precedent, certainly recently and going back further, has been to require this on existing roads. So we are recommending that that be provided a discretionary permit for each lot to provide pedestrian access along James Brown Drive. In terms of compatibility and potential nuisances, this is something that's been raised by some of the residents on the adjoining properties on Shirley Way. So the bylaws do have nuisance provisions. It probably should be said at the outset that the use proposed by the applicant, warehousing, is an allowed use in the zoning district, albeit it does abut a residential zoning district. In terms of air quality, the bylaws do control dust generation, both during and after construction, and uses that generate smoke. Our own bylaws don't regulate emissions from vehicular traffic, and the applicant's not proposing any uses that would generate smoke or dust. In terms of noise, Williston has a noise ordinance that deals with existing development. That said, it is open for the DRB to examine noise on new development. The bylaw sets a sound limit measured at the property line of the receiving district, which in this case would be the RZD, of 60 decibels during the day and 50 decibels at night. The Lot 2 parcel is some distance from the closest residential boundary. That would be one for the DRB to discuss with the applicant what sort of noise impacts could occur. And they might feel that it's either appropriate to request a full noise study or simply identify noise contours on the site plan. Getting there in the end, we are in the design review district. It was reviewed by the HDAC, as they're now known. They changed their name to Historic and Design Advisory Committee recently. So they've made some recommendations for the applicant to incorporate. It was really just a site plan, so those recommendations are pretty limited at this stage. But just, avoiding dead walls, creating a sort of direct connection, and ensuring the landscape parking lot is landscaped, and then building a strong street line. And then lastly, on landscape buffers, part of the reason we do require this is to separate different uses. So our bylaws do specify different widths and types of buffer, which depend on the two uses that are the existing use and the proposed use. One thing is that the bylaws do allow existing vegetation which can serve screening function to be retained. Generally, this is most commonly used out in the rural area where we have type 1 landscape buffers, which is basically just existing buffer. You can use it in other situations. And determining what type of landscape buffer is appropriate is an important exercise for the DRB. So lot 1 is an existing use. It doesn't have any landscape buffers marked on its site plan. They do have some outside storage there, which we're recommending is brought under a site plan. And we're also recommending that they show some landscape buffers. So I think lot 2, given it's under the Velco easement, and it's separating two parcels in the same ownership, I think doesn't seem a great deal of point of landscaping that. Lot 3 can be the applicant's choice. They're showing a 50-foot type 1 buffer, but that obviously does take a lot of space. And I think it might necessitate quite a lot of planting to bring it up to that standard. So they might want to think about reducing the width slightly and going for a different type of buffer would also give them more developable area that they could give to lot 3. And then lastly, Shirley Circle, which is sort of the residential property you can see to the south of their parcel. It's sort of also wrapped around to the west. They do benefit from a pretty dense screen of trees along that boundary. So my suggestion was that it's broadly compliant with the type 2 buffer. And a type 2 buffer is a dense screening, so a line of dense trees supplemented with additional planting when necessary. So my suggestion was to delineate that on the site plan for lot 1, look to see where it needs to be supplemented where necessary, and take that forward as a type 2 buffer while protecting those existing trees. The applicant might also want to talk about what screening can be achieved in the Velco easement along that property line. And on recent applications, a lot of applicants have done pretty well when they've talked direct to their neighbours about things like that. So that might be worth something the applicant exploring there to develop that sort of relationship. And then lastly, got sort of fairly standard recommendations on street trees along James Brown Drive, watershed health, outdoor lighting, and signs. So then what follows is a recommendation to proceed with recommendations as drafted.
Great. Thank you, Simon. All right. Ethan and Brian, walk us through the project, if you would, please.
Yep. So it's as Simon described, it's a 3-lot subdivision. Lot 1's the remaining auction house. Lot 2 we're proposing a small warehouse building on, and lot 3 we're leaving is undeveloped right now. Some of the talking points that staff brought up: municipal sewer. We understand that the pump station on Park Avenue is privately held. We do believe we may have right, as the force main does go through a property. The Merrills may have maintained a right to connect way back when that force main went in. Obviously, something we'll research more as we get into a subdivision plat, but we are aware that's private. Our backup plan is an on-site septic system, as the auction house and the warehouse are both very low users for septic capacity. That may be a backup plan if a reasonable solution with the HOA can't be reached, but we are aware of that constraint. The parking that's associated with the warehouse building on lot 2, we're showing 33 spaces. This building is not meant to be a spec building. There is an owner in mind that we have been talking to. They're not ready for their name to be mentioned yet, but we will sharpen our pencil on the exact amount of parking that they feel is necessary when we come back for discretionary. So we know, as a fairly basic layout, parking on one side, the building on the other, we are likely overparked for your standard warehouse building.
So Brian, stop there for a second.
Yeah.
So I understand they don't want to, the owner that you're working with doesn't want to be shared, but I think it's appropriate to tell the board, what the building is going to look like in terms of truck access, loading docks, turning radiuses.
Yep.
As opposed to, if that's what it's going to look like right here, great. But
So currently, we're not showing any overhead doors. We're not showing any truck docks.
So you don't anticipate that they will be in the final plan? Is that another way am I interpreting that correctly?
At this point in time, they haven't mentioned that to be a necessity.
Okay.
When we come back for discretionary, there will be a full site plan application showing exactly those needs, but we expect the layout to generally be as we're showing in its sketch.
And so you said no overhead doors?
As of right now, we're not showing any overhead doors, correct?
Okay.
So is that prospect a business that's active in the weekends?
No.
The reason I ask that is because of shared parking arrangement. And if there was an active auction, and the auctions are on weekends typically, is that correct?
Not traditionally anymore, no.
Oh, they're not? Okay.
No, we're generally midweek, and with all the online activity, our parking demands have decreased substantially.
Okay. And so you don't anticipate that unless it's a unique situation, you don't anticipate that you would exceed the number of spaces shown
It-
on lot one?
It would probably be a unique scenario, yeah, if
Okay.
we did.
Okay.
We're just showing the extent of the gravel area that's there now. We're not showing anything additional than what's there
Yeah.
today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, I think the over parking was mostly about lot 2.
Yeah, I just was wondering if there was an active auction and
Right.
what would happen.
Great.
Yeah. Because I have seen
Yeah,
active
there was
auctions
yours.
there. Yeah. Okay.
And then landscaping buffers, staff suggestions, we're okay with. There's nothing major. We're currently showing a 13-foot landscaping buffer in the rear of the property, likely the most important one given the residential component. There is the benefit of a mature hedge that's already there. So the 26 feet would be inclusive of that hedge. We likely would need to add to the eastern side of that hedge to really screen more for lot 2, though there is a grade change, pretty substantial grade change from the back of the Habitat for Humanity parcel, and then there's approximately 10 feet across lot 2 in the front there, so we'll be cutting an additional 5 feet in the back. So the grade will hide lot 2 fairly substantially, but there is a little bit of a gap between the edge of the hedge and the southeastern property line of lot 1. So we'd be amenable to increasing that buffer over there. Anything associated with lot 3, we'd like to defer, obviously, until lot 3 gets developed. Right now, it's just undeveloped lots.
Now, realizing that you're restricted on what you can say, the potential occupant of the Lot 2 warehouse, can you make a statement relative to noise generation?
Minimal.
Okay. Anything else to add at this point?
The last piece of it is the sidewalk proposed along James Brown Drive.
Yep.
It seems heavy-handed, given the application in front of you. Those sorts of things are up to DRB discretion, as you're well aware of. There's no sidewalk in this end of town. James Brown Drive, River Cove. The only pedestrian facility is really Route 2A. Being 700 feet, it just seems heavy-handed. Now, we're more than happy to paint a fog line, give an easement for a future sidewalk, but given the proposal in front of you, we feel 700 feet is quite a substantial sidewalk. The one that's also shown on Lot 2 is an additional 100 feet approximately. There is, like I was mentioning before, there's an about 11-foot grade change on Lot 2. So once we kind of even that grade out, the only way to make a connection likely would be through stairs. So I don't think that connection is really in line with what's being proposed due to the grade changes. I think a staircase there is, again, heavy-handed for the very minimal pedestrian bicycle activity that's expected in this industrial park.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
DRB members, questions?
Well, so now that you mentioned the warehouse is going to be a separate thing, was the outdoor storage in your facility still going to remain there that you're using?
Yeah, I mean, I'd assume so, depending on what you guys have to say. I've had the outdoor storage there for,
Are they trailers?
yeah, they're just roll-offs, trailers and roll-offs.
Yeah, I think staff has asked us to designate them. So
Yeah.
in the future, if
Yeah.
they expand past this footprint, staff has a mechanism to.
Yeah, it just needs to be identified on the plan where
Right.
they would be.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
fine.
because they're allowed.
Of course.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just making the assumption that if it was their warehouse, they might be moving those over there eventually, but
No.
the other comment took care of that.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it for now.
Lisa?
I'm just wondering, would there be any walkers coming into this lot 2 business?
Walking?
Even walk-ins?
No, everyone would be arriving by vehicle.
And then,
Scott?
Oh, well said.
Okay. Let's segue to members of the public. There were a couple of letters received. Those are part of the public package and part of the public record. Does anyone tonight, would anyone like to come forth and address the board? If you would, please come to the public table here and take a seat and state your name and address for the record, please.
Is this on?
I think it is.
Okay. Hi. My name's Elizabeth Blakemore. I'm the owner of 86 Shirley Circle, and I'll keep this short because I did send an email. So mostly, I just would request that the board do as much as they can to get more information on noise control or noise pollution in general. I find it's already difficult to enjoy the outdoor space that I have today with the F-35s flying around and the additional warehouse activity. So I am just slightly, well, not slightly, I'm very concerned about additional noise pollution in that area, in addition to the other things that I outlined in my email. So I appreciate you giving me the time to speak today.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Hello there, my name is Nora Winter. I'm at 64 Shirley Circle. And I didn't write an email, so I'll take as long as I want. So my first question is the two lots that are on either side of lot one, they seemed like they were, I mean, I walk by them every day and I work with the Department of like basically Vermont wetlands. And those are wetlands, clearly, I heard we had the 50-foot buffer was mentioned, I believe, was it at all?
On the previous application?
Yeah.
that you made?
Yeah, the 50-foot buffer that you have to respect if there are wetlands present on the property.
Well, there's different types of wetlands, but.
Right, there's classes of wetlands, but I wanted to make sure I heard that there was the buffer was addressed. I mean, that little like, you know, that whole like difference in elevation between the back lot of the Habitat for Humanity and the lot there is wetlands. There's a river that runs through it. That's why there's a difference of elevation.
Okay, so address the board if you would, please. And so staff, please give an overview of how wetlands are treated and delineated in the process, please.
So you are correct that a delineated wetland has a 50-foot buffer around it. The way our bylaws work is that where wetlands are suspected, either on our own maps or the maps maintained by the state, the applicant's required to go out and survey them to identify where they are and to sort of define the boundaries.
I understand. I'm a permit coordinator for a solar company, and I work with them quite frequently, so
Yeah.
I do understand the process. But I was just wondering, I know. So what I'm basically saying is, I know when wetlands are present, and there's two parking lots going right on top of one of them.
I mean, I've checked. There's no indication on anything that I've checked that those wetlands are present.
Okay, so you are working with the Wetlands Conservancy.
Yeah, we checked their information that they have available. Yep.
So you've checked the information that you've had available, but have you had a delineation with the state? Have they gone to the property?
Well, we don't suspect wetlands at this stage, so we would.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, residents close by, can we request a delineation?
You wouldn't be able to request a delineation of us. If you have some evidence that there were wetlands there,
Okay,
we could certainly take that on board.
okay.
But we don't have any evidence at this stage in the bylaws.
Because you haven't collected any, you haven't had a delineation.
Well, no.
Correct. Okay, so that was my first thing, and then
So hold on.
Yep.
Okay, while we just kind of take pause here for a minute. Okay, Brian, you spent time on the site.
Mhm.
What's you, as a professional civil engineer, what's your assessment of wetland presence on that site?
We are not expecting any wetlands on site. There are some cattails in the roadside ditch along James Brown Drive that would maybe be associated with a class 3 or non-jurisdictional wetland. Any roadside ditches that are maintained by the town generally aren't protected. But those would be the only wetlands that I feel maybe the neighbor is.
So what would you
is alluding
consider as
to.
separating the two lots then from the lot 3 from the back of the Habitat for Humanity?
So let me interrupt you for a second and say, Brian, what's your obligation as a certified civil engineer to report a possible wetlands
Yeah.
and as part of your duties
Yeah.
to the client?
Yeah, so this isn't an Act 250 jurisdictional parcel. Interestingly, there's 250 jurisdiction to the north and to the south of this parcel, but this parcel was in existence prior to most of James Brown Drive being constructed. So generally speaking, when you apply for a wetlands permit, you check a box that essentially says whether or not there's mapped wetlands on the parcel. There's all sorts of online information out there, hydric soils, wetland advisory layers, class 2 wetlands, wetland projects. There's all sorts of indicators of where wetlands may or may not be. This parcel did not show any of those indicators. Again, I've mentioned the roadside ditches that appear to have wetland plants in them, but whether or not they rise to the level of a jurisdictional wetland is doubtful in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Also, just I think she also brought up some great points about we want to make sure that there's not only light pollution, noise pollution, and like she mentioned, we already have quite a bit going on there. I also am just curious to know. I guess this is not something to bring to the board, but just like it's kind of worrying that we're new homeowners. These are homes that we hope to have for a while, and I'm wondering what we have a very kind of wonderful, quiet kind of community right now. Putting a giant warehouse, what that might do to our home property values. Maybe I'm new. Maybe I just these are the questions that you can't answer, but they're questions I want to ask.
So one of the guiding principles that we follow as a DRB is that in the most simple form is that we don't make the rules, and so there's zoning. And there's allowed uses on different parcels. And this particular, the Merrill family who owns this parcel has rights just like you as homeowners have rights. And there's rules of engagement, and the rules of engagement are the bylaws. And if they're conforming within the bylaw rules, which include light pollution, noise pollution, to name a few, and then there's safeguards in the permitting process on wetlands, then they are compliant, and that's an approved use if they are adhering to all those standards. Okay. And so it really has to be property rights on both sides of the ledger.
All right, and my final note would be about the sidewalk. I would just, sure there's not a lot of foot traffic, but that road is quite often used by residents who live right behind there, myself included. I walk that road with my dog every day, so, might be not the worst thing if you're going to put in a giant warehouse, put a sidewalk for the residents who live behind it. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public, would you like to address the board? If so, come up to the table. Okay, hearing none. DRP members, any final thoughts or comments?
I'm just wondering how many people live back in this community? How many units are there?
Oh, how many butters did we send out?
Let's ask the neighbors. Both.
Either.
Well, there's going to be the first community with 4 there's also beyond the other lot, there's also another 4 units, and there's the other units kind of like just beyond ours, so that's 16, 24, 28 units, so times that by a family of like 4.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Scott, anything else?
All set.
Okay. Last call for members of the audience. Brian and Ethan, any last thoughts or comments?
No.
Okay.
So one thing I would add for the neighbors is that this is pre-application. So there's a bunch of different levels that this approval has to go through. It isn't a foregone conclusion, but the owner of the property has their rights and they are well described. But this is the pre-application level of the approval process. You will be notified as the process works its way through the system, and you're obviously welcome to attend the meetings, express your opinions, and be engaged. And I would recommend that you do so. It is your home, and you have a right to do so, to do that. So be part of the process. You will get a better outcome. Okay.
And we are, I don't want to come off as cold to, to commercial abutting residential properties. We're very sensitive to that. It's just that it's not really our place to make subjective rulings. And that doesn't mean that we're not sensitive to what you have brought forth. It's just not in our purview. With that, I will close DP 24-12 at 7:52. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Allenbrook Development, discretionary permit for adding a dumpster enclosure. And welcome, Brian and Al and
Brought Nicole.
Nicole. Yes, I remember you, Nicole. And okay, if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Nicole Senecal and 31 Commerce Ave in South Burlington.
And I'm Al Senecal with Allenbrook Development at 31 Commerce Ave in South Burlington.
And Brian Birch, Ellenbrook Development, 31 Commerce Ave.
Thank you and welcome. Okay, staff goes next.
Thank you. This is a request for a discretionary permit to install a new dumpster pad to serve a new commercial tenant at 100 Cornerstone Drive, also known as Building A, in the Taft Farm Shopping Center. Dollar Tree has received an administrative permit for the interior fit-up of the former Walgreens space. This is a multi-tenant commercial property, a little over 13 acres, located in the mixed-use residential zoning district, as well as the Taft Corners Form-Based Code Overlay District, where it has its access from a town road, Talcott Road. So staff is recommending approval with conditions as drafted. I also note that there are two conditions for the DRB to consider. This is the first time the DRB is reviewing the request. This property was developed in the 1990s. It was a subdivision from 1990 that created the parcel. And then there was another subdivision proposed in 1996 that never went through. The Public Works and Fire Departments received this application for their review. Public Works had no comment. The Fire Department did have comments. They are listed as a condition, noted with their limitations that the Fire Department's plan review policy is a policy, not an ordinance, so it can only be enforced to the extent that it complies with and can be enforced by the Unified Development Bylaws. Fire code is handled through the separate State of Vermont Division of Fire Safety. One comment letter was received at the time of mail out. That's included in your packets. That letter was from a commercial tenant in the complex that's supportive of this application. No other comment letters were received up to this evening. So this property is in the Form-Based Code Overlay District, where the regulating plan map identifies a 30-foot parking setback line. So new sites, new developments within this district, parking would have to be set back 30 feet roughly from the edge of the road right of way, in this case, Route 2 and Talcott Road. Where the dumpster enclosure is proposed is within the existing parking access area, and it is outside of that parking setback line. The setbacks of the mixed-use residential zoning district do not comply or do not apply here. Those setbacks are a little bit larger, but they're superseded by form-based code. In terms of development pattern, so this is an existing commercial property with 4 commercial tenants. The buildings share 2 existing dumpster enclosures, and the layout means that some tenants must go farther than others to empty their trash and recycling. What's being proposed here is a dumpster enclosure that would serve Dollar Tree, the new commercial tenant. The bylaws do not limit the number of dumpster areas a site may have. And while the bylaw can require things like shared parking, it cannot require shared dumpster areas. The landowner, by allowing one of its tenants to have its own convenient dumpster, may create a scenario where future existing tenants want their own dumpsters that would be located behind the building but visible from Williston Road. So the way this site is developed, it's non-conforming with our current standards. We would want business entrances facing Talcott Road and Williston Road, parking to the rear. It was developed under an older bylaw where the main entrances face the parking lot and not the street. So while adding this one enclosure is permissible, more would be in conflict with the intent of form-based code and the intent of Chapter 22 design standards, where the goal is a strong direct relationship to the street and that dumpsters are kept away from business entrances. That's why I'm recommending a condition approval that no more dumpster areas will be permitted between buildings A and B and Williston Road and Talcott Road. So those would be the most visible areas. If they wanted to expand or add dumpster areas on the northern side of the property, that would be okay. The highly visible areas, this would be the last one. In terms of the maintenance standards of Chapter 16 that apply to dumpster enclosures, compliance is anticipated. They considered a couple options before landing on this separate location. So our bylaw says that the preferred location is located within or in addition to the building. That's not preferable to the fire department. And also for this site, it would disrupt the pedestrian walkway that circulates the entire building. So that option was thrown out. In terms of landscape screening, they are proposing a 6-foot tall vinyl fence. And the location is away from pedestrian sidewalks. Even though it's visible, it's away from sidewalks. In terms of design review, this is located in the form-based code district where Chapter 22 is mostly superseded. And that bylaw chapter only talks about keeping dumpsters away from principal entrances. Chapter 16 also refers to Chapter 23 for landscaping. So this is the second decision point for the DRB. You must decide if additional landscaping should be planted around the proposed dumpster enclosure. A dense evergreen hedge is typically required, but the DRB may permit an exemption where space constraints prevent it. So this dumpster enclosure is proposed near a sloping hill and 3 large evergreens shown in the image on the left. The hill is somewhat steep, but could probably accommodate a couple smaller shrubs. So the DRB must decide if additional plantings are desirable here. Lastly, in my staff report, I include some information about signage, more as an FYI than anything else. This property has had some chronic issues with the multi-tenant Sandwich board signs, and what I described here is an option for the applicant if they wanted to modify or refresh their freestanding signs. Even though form-based code doesn't allow new freestanding signs, they're vested in that main, those two main signs. So if they wanted to change the design, allow tenants to use their own fonts and colors, add more changeable copy or banner space, as long as they're not expanding square footage of sign area, that would be permissible and would kind of help with the tenant messaging that is shown desirable here. Lastly, what follows are findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval, including conditions number in 17 and 18. Thank you.
Okay. So before questions, any comments on proposed conditions?
We don't have too much to add. It's, this request is pretty straightforward, just for the one dumpster enclosure. Al and I met with Emily back in November to talk about this, and, we looked at a few different locations, but this location worked best for a number of reasons. First being that Dollar Tree, who's going to be rent about 2/3 of that building 100. They're renting about 9,000 square feet. Has their loading and unloading area on the side of the building that faces Williston Road. So their entrance is going to be off the parking lot in the middle, and where they're going to be taking their trash out of the building will be on the side facing Williston Road. So this area where we propose the dumpster works well for that because it's closer, and it also works well because the area is maybe 10 to 15 feet lower than Talcott and Williston Road. So it's going to be actually barely visible. In fact, Emily, I'm not sure if you're able to put up the letter I sent, the cover letter. It had a picture from a Google Earth that I think is helpful. It'll kind of help me explain this. It's on page 2. Yep. So, everybody has seen this view of Building 100. Those 3 evergreens were either original or planted when Al built this project in the mid-90s. Now they are gigantic screening trees, and they're at the top of the bank. From where they're planted, this starts to slope down. So that dumpster would be located behind those trees and 10 feet lower. You can see it kind of slopes back to a grade that is more level with the road as you move east, and you're still barely able to see the top of the parked cars. And you're actually looking at essentially the roof of the building from the road. And it's similar from Talcott as well. So, this dumpster will be kind of in that corner, but it's going to be enclosed with a vinyl fence and screened by those giant trees, and definitely, won't stand out. So I know you have to decide whether additional landscaping is required, but I think that picture shows that those trees are doing a pretty good job of screening in addition to the terrain, and they will stay. Other than that, it's a straightforward application, so we're certainly here to answer any questions. The only other thing I'd point out is we're able to locate this dumpster in an area where the traffic curves around the corner, and that portion happened to be wider than it needed to be. And I think that was at one time a snow storage area. But we were able to fit this dumpster in that additional pavement while still providing room for cars to circulate the parking lot. And so we're really able to build this without expanding anything impervious that's there. We're able to build this on the footprint of existing pavement. We will cut it up and put a new concrete pad, but we thought it worked well for that reason as well. That's pretty much it. We did have a couple questions on some of the conditions, but I can jump to that unless you have questions before we do that.
Go right to the conditions, please.
Okay. Sure. So I believe some of these may be potential boilerplate conditions that, may apply to some projects, but not all projects. And I'll kind of skip some of them because they really do not apply to this dumpster application. But number 7, I wanted clarification on. And number 7 says, any required vehicular and bicycle parking shall be provided as required by Chapter 14. And then it goes on to say, a parking table describing the number of parking spaces, including vehicular and bicycle parking, and a calculation for how the proposed parking meets the requirements of Chapter 14 shall be included on the final plans.
Emily?
Yeah, that's a boilerplate one. I struck some of them, but not all of them.
Okay.
We can take that one out.
Okay.
Okay,
That
what-
doesn't apply.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to, wasn't sure if they were looking for bike parking because,
No,
okay.
that'll be struck.
Okay, that's easy enough. Let's see. I guess number 17, and I will kind of get Al's thoughts on this. We haven't had a chance to talk about it too much.
I think I understand it now. I wasn't sure about it, but
Yeah, so it says no other dumpsters will be permitted in the future. And it says between buildings A and B, but then it also goes on to say Williston Road and Talcott Road. So I think that means, Emily, can you tell me what you meant by that? Which areas?
Yeah, I meant, so this is building A and this is building B. So this parking area south of the buildings, between the buildings and Williston Road, and then Talcott, this area, like the drive aisle between building A and Talcott Road. So those highly visible areas.
Yep.
I didn't contemplate, like, if anything were to happen between buildings A and B.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. I guess what I would say to that is, this is the dumpster we're applying for, the one dumpster. We're not applying for anything else. But you never know what the future can hold, and this condition certainly limits that for the future. So maybe I would request that just the words "unless approved by the DRB" be added. So if there was a need in the future and it would require us coming back to the board and really explaining why it would be needed. But I think that's easy enough to do. We understand that, the town doesn't want to see dumpsters in the front of along the road. But we just not sure, what would happen in 20 years. And
we would
No,
never.
but that is redundant, right? Because it's got to be approved by the DRB anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah, and so,
Right.
well, so if this condition, the way it's worded, it sounds like it could never be
Well,
allowed.
I think that was
Okay,
the purpose.
so,
We don't anticipate it ever being needed, but we didn't anticipate this one either, so
Right.
you might see us back here in 20 years looking for some.
I won't see you back here.
so, it's not something we're planning to do, but I think with that kind of additional wording, that condition can work for us. Other than that, we have really nothing else to add.
Okay. Signage.
Signage.
You don't control your tenants. I get that.
We try.
But
We do try.
it's unsightly there, and it's highly visible. And
What-
so
So what part of it is unsightly? You think the whole sign?
no,
Or
the
the
sandwich
sandwich board?
sandwich boards,
I agree with that.
the sandwich boards.
And we've noticed, and we can do another notice where we say we're gonna fine them if they don't.
So we'll
Take it down or-
just collect them and take them, and we'll tell them that Emily came and took them away.
Poor Emily.
blame it on V-Trans.
We'll do that.
I would respectfully ask that
We'll take care of it.
you be proactive on that, okay? If
And we'll take Emily up.
I'm not in a position to provide operational procedures for you, but please please be proactive with that. It's a highly visible area.
Yeah, I will notice them tomorrow. I have noticed them in the past.
We'll just pick them up. We'll
Yeah.
take care of it.
Okay.
We'll have the maintenance guys pick them up.
Thank you. And I know on, at Cottonwood, you were very proactive when issues were raised and thank you for your attention to this one. Okay.
We'll do that.
Okay. DRB members, questions?
I guess just one clarification, is this going to be newly paved area or take out of the current paved area?
Nope, it's existing paved right now.
Yeah, it's that area of the parking lot it was built wider than it needed to be, I believe, because they used it as an area to store snow. So now they'll have to, take the snow storage and move it to a new space. But it just happens to fit the dumpster dimensions that they needed perfectly.
Okay, and you have a snow storage plan then?
Snow storage is stored in various areas on the site. I can certainly add it to the final plans, but it's pretty much at the ends of the parking lanes.
And there'll still be area for snow to be stored there next to the dumpsters as well, but it's on both ends of the parking lot is where we store the snow on that side, and there's various other spots on site that we do store, snow storage.
Right.
And just out of curiosity, are you going to saw cut the asphalt and put in a concrete pad?
Yeah, yep, that is the plan.
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
Nope.
No, I'm good.
All right.
All set?
Members of the audience, any questions? State your name and address for the record, please.
All right, my name is Dr. Bill Shank, 205 Cornerstone Drive. I own a business there, and I'll direct my questions to you, but I do have some questions for the...
Address the board, please.
Okay. Hi, Al. Hi, Nicole. And hi, Brian. Okay. I have some questions. Can you bring back up the Google Earth view, please? There you go. Okay. Can I point in here?
Absolutely. You can head right up to the screen.
So if you notice that the picture that was taken from the road was actually taken from across here. And because of the slope of the road, you won't see anything on the other side of that. It's the most advantageous place to take a picture that would hide it, right? But if you arrive on this side, you actually can look down the whole length of the parking lot. And that would be really visible as well. Good reach. Great. Thank you so much. So this is a view that you can see if you're looking right at the dumpster. You are under west on round 2. You can see there. Okay. You also see it if you're coming up from Shunpike Road. You can directly see into it. So it would be quite visible from both roads.
Yeah, you're good. Thank you. Much appreciated.
So if you turn around, so that is, obviously right here where this car is, that it would be quite visible. You've all seen dumpsters, and the nature of them is that they tend to accumulate stuff. There's a dumpster that's on site. In fact, there's been a dumpster there for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go down to the Google view of the yard? So where's the dumpster on location?
On the,
There's 2 of them.
Right up here.
Right there,
One
yeah.
there. Hasn't been adequate for the last 20+ years. There's been no need for another third dumpster on site for 20+ years. The new tenant would not create any more trash than anybody else. In fact, it's all in this box that I imagine. And there's some trash. So the need for dumpster is questionable because it hasn't been needed for 20+ years. And I can attest, because I'm close by the other dumpsters, that people bring their residential trash to the dumpster and they dump it in there. It's not cardboard boxes. It's their trash. It's full of garbage. And the garbage stinks. And this is actually, an ICU was actually probably done after it was just repaired. Now the doors don't close. You look in there, you see people's trash between the dumpsters and it stinks. So people driving by my office would pass by a dumpster that perhaps in the future, very likely, would get broken again, doors wouldn't close, and it would smell. And they'd see trash there because nobody picks it up. Who wants to pick up trash? Right?
I'll just say that that's not
So
correct.
You can address me, but I can't address him.
I won't say anything.
That's the rules.
Okay.
So he will address the board and you will address the board.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Okay, so if, do you want to continue it, or do you want
I
Mr.
just want
Sen-
to points to bring up. This is-
or, hold on.
Sure.
Or would you like Mr. Senecal to address the board on the topics that you've raised now, or would you like to wait until the end? What's your preference?
I just want to say that we do spend ample hours picking up trash that tenants don't put in the dumpsters sometimes, but we do spend a lot of time taking care of that. And I think there's evidence right there that there's not a lot of trash laying around, and I've seen a lot of trash laying around sometimes. And as soon as I see it, we, again, ask the guys to pick it up and take care of it. It's very difficult, and you can run out of men real easy trying to pick up somebody else's trash like that. But we do a pretty good job taking care of that.
And one more thing, this particular tenant has said they will not go in to the building if they can't get this approved. So I guess from my perspective, then I have almost 10,000 feet vacant for how many years, I don't know. And I don't think that that's great for the complex either. So it's not my request, but I have to cater to what that tenant wants, or else I don't get that tenant, and then the lights don't go on and the taxes are still due. And then to me, the complex is, not as lively.
So, I'd like to ask a question. So Nicole.
So, hold on.
Would the tenant, so we figured that was probably the case.
Yes.
There wouldn't be much reason to do this otherwise.
Right.
Would the tenant accept a cardboard only or recycling only? I mean, the majority of what they're going to be developing has got to be recycling.
100% agreed. I've asked them, and I think I even thought the request was much. But they said to me, we won't even get a lease going. We won't even get anything until you can tell me I can have trash recycling this close to my doors, or else we're not even going to talk to you anymore. So I'm stuck. And this is, for me, I have to keep these buildings rented, or else we have a huge vacancy. I mean, almost 10,000 feet in one building, and I don't know what else to do. So anyway.
Okay, continue, please.
Question, could it possibly be that this dumpster gets locked? Only the tenants that use the dumpster have access to it. That would, then they'd preserve it more likely. It wouldn't, by the way, I took a picture of this dumpster on Friday, and the doors they don't close now, and there's trash on each side. From likely from residents throwing trash there, or maybe tenants throwing it there as well. Oh, by the way, I never received a letter from you folks. And I'm intended that obviously it's denied violence. So I'm not sure what happened.
We got a lot of letters bounced back. From,
I think we sent out about 275.
there was a big letter stuffing party at the office, but many came back.
If Dr. McCann's got a letter, I probably should have gotten a letter too, because he's the same company. So just letting you know that this just wasn't successful. I only learned of it because there was a thing stuck on the wall. Okay. I'm not opposed to development. I'm not opposed to this, Benford. I'm just concerned about the tenants that we have driving by a dumpster that looks unsightly. It's going to stink, and it's going to be broken sooner or later. It's just the nature of a dumpster. There's no way that they can guarantee that it won't look like that, because that's the nature of a dumpster. That's what happens to it. So there's some way to control it, or some way to protect the visibility of it, and the unsightliness of the factory smell. I appreciate that. And not opposed to you, but just want to protect my clients.
Sure.
Thank you.
Have you considered a covered building with garage doors?
We thought about it because we thought about under the canopy of the building itself, but then That's going to require somebody getting out of the truck, rolling it out of the garage, and they're going to be 6-yard dumpsters is what they're requesting. So a little difficult to do that with that size. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, okay. Well, we have that. I mean, we met with staff and understand their concerns about, dumpsters not, looking like a dumpster. So we proposed this dumpster that's on the site plan that's, completely screened enclosure. It's screened with a fence. The door is actually also a vinyl fence material. So it looks very different from the dumpster that was there and approved in the 1990s, which is just chain link with green slats. So in the color of the fencing was chosen to match the building. So while it's not a building with a roof on it, it's an enclosure that's looks like a structure. And the only other thing I'll add is the property overall is close to a little over like 71,000 square feet of commercial space. Those buildings where your office is, they're 2-3 story buildings. So we have a lot of different types of tenants in there, all ranges of tenants, and with 2 dumpsters. And it has functioned for a long time, but one more will help alleviate the congestion on the 2 that are there. This one tenant who's leasing 9,000 square feet of space will now not be filling the 2 existing dumpsters. And, I think that will help the other tenants, for all the problems you mentioned, trash falling outside of them, smells, because now they'll have, a good chunk of the entire property, now using their own. And so the issues of, keeping them maintained, that's on Al as the property owner. And, we do maintain these.
It'll certainly be easier to have that particular dumpster maintained because there's only one user for it. And when it gets messy or gets out of control or gets broken, we can request that they get it fixed or they pick up their trash because it's unsightly. So it'll be a lot easier to police that one than one that, 8, 10, 12 tenants are dumping in. And like Dr. Bill said, we have policed it. I've personally gone in those dumpsters to rip open bags that I know people throw their trash in, and I've called them. I mean, I can tell you some pretty unbelievable names that I've called to say, hey, you're dumping your trash in my, or your trash man is dumping your trash in my dumpsters. And we do a lot of policing with it because it's a crazy situation, just short of putting them in a building. We do that at the senior housing. We have our trash room in the senior housing, and then we transport it out of that trash room for, to be dumped. So it's a little bit more cumbersome to do something like that. Obviously, we've hired people to do that for the seniors, and it's just more work. It's hard to do it for the commercial tenants that way, but I think it'll be a lot easier to police a single user in a dumpster situation like that.
We've actually, Ella and I have had this conversation about people dumping their personal trash in there many years ago. Oh my God. And there's also the Vermont meat and seafood that's there. They would probably use the dumpster too?
No, they wouldn't, because this will be strictly for that one tenant.
Got it. So they could put a lock on it.
They could put a lock on it, and like I said, it'll be very easy to police it. If there's trash floating around or things get broken, we can certainly go to them to have them fix it.
Okay. Yeah, the lock might be, a good solution because, if it's just one tenant using one dumpster, it's easy for them to lock it when they're, when they're done. Whereas couldn't do that with the other 2 because so many different people are using it, and you never know it's hard to police because you never know who's the one filling it on that spills over. So, whereas this will be much easier because we'll know who it is.
And they're paying for it themselves, so they intend to lock it because they're going to pay for whatever the removal is, and that, won't be obviously part of CAM or anything like that, so it should be easy to keep an eye on it. But.
So I want to say for the record, I want to see them be continually successful, and hopefully this is a tenant that actually is there for a long time that serves you. I want that to happen.
We'll certainly take a phone call from you if you see something. We'll be happy.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to pester you in the least.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the
All right.
board, I'll just note that our bylaw isn't as fine-grained enough for the DRB to condition a lock mechanism as part of the approval. So that can be something that.
It
the
it
pro-
is not
It's
something.
outside of your purview. Our bylaw doesn't get as fine-grained as to tenant management of shared dumpsters and locking, that sort of thing. So something that they're welcome to do on their own, but it's not something the DRB can require.
But does sandwich boards, yes.
Oh, yeah.
We do have more say over sandwich boards than dumpsters.
It does look like trash.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other members of the audience who would like to address the board? DRB members?
I just have one question. Now the house is the size of the dumpster, they won't be able to wheel them in and out of the unit. So the trucks are gonna be backing up to
No, they'll pull right in. They'll be front loader trucks.
front loader trucks, okay.
Yep.
Pull
Yeah.
in, they get out to open the gates and then they'll
Yep.
dump them, close the gates and leave.
Right, okay.
Yep. So that's yeah, that location works perfect for that reason.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, we're good.
Okay. I'm going to close DP 24-13 at 8:26. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Switch. I don't care, whatever. Should I, or? Yeah, maybe so you can be closer for the board. It'll be a better camera angle too.
Up is Appeal 24-02. Good evening. If you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Alex Goodrich, 1021 South Road.
Mary Seipel, 1021 South.
Thank you. Okay, staff goes next. Melinda.
Yeah. So this is a appeal of the issuance of a notice of zoning violation. The subject property is at 1250 South Road. The notice of zoning violation was for RV use exceeding duration limits and an unpermitted establishment of a dwelling unit. So as provided by the Williston bylaw and state statute, any decision of the administrator may be appealed to the DRB, and the DRB must hold a public hearing. The DRB may uphold, modify, or overturn the decision of the administrator. In every case, the DRB shall adopt written findings and conclusions supporting its action. And the DRB's decision on an appeal can be appealed to the Vermont Environmental Board. So the property that's the subject of this appeal is located at 1250 South Road in the agricultural residential zoning district. There are two existing dwellings on the Seipel property that have existed since the 1800s. There's been a bunch of permits issued on this property. The last one was issued in the early 1990s. The administrator's determination. The deputy zoning administrator determined that three zoning violations have occurred on the subject property. One, a recreational vehicle on the property has been inhabited for more than 17 consecutive days and/or 28 cumulative days. Violation of WDB 20.15.2. Two, a mobile home has been installed on the property without obtaining a permit. Violation of WDB 4.
Could you say that again? Excuse me.
A mobile home has been installed on the property without obtaining a permit. Violation of WDB 4.1.1 and WDB 2.6.3. And third, the mobile home is within the 50-foot front yard setbacks. a violation of WDB 31.3. The appellants have submitted a statement basically just saying that they placed the trailer on the concrete pad to work on, not live in, and that they intend to apply and fill out correct paperwork. No public comment letters were received by the time of packet mail out on January 4th, 2023. We did receive a comment letter today, which I have included or distributed to you, and a legal opinion has not been requested. So discussing the first violation, the recreational vehicle. So per WDB 20.15.2, recreational vehicle may be used as guest quarters on a residential property for no more than 17 consecutive days and for no more than 28 days cumulatively during a calendar year.
And that's under regulations of residential, correct?
Right, correct.
Fair.
Recreational vehicles may be used as temporary living quarters for the resident household during the construction or remodeling of a dwelling, but that use must cease when a certificate of compliance is issued or the work is completed. Staff have received multiple complaints over the past several months about the RV and have observed an RV parked on the property within the front yard setback. And
When you say within the front yard setbacks, what are you stating there? How many feet?
so 50 feet from the property line. Some email correspondence has indicated that the RV's been present on the property for longer than the 17-day limit, and the RV's presumed to be occupied. Staff is
Are
recommending.
there any exemptions? Sorry, Melinda.
No, there's no
All right.
exemption.
There's no exemptions to that for agricultural.
No.
Okay, continue, please.
Staff's recommending, as stated in the notice of zoning violation and the follow-up letter, that this violation can be rectified by removing the RV from the property or by ceasing occupancy and removing the RV from the front yard setback. An unoccupied RV may be stored on the property, but it can't be within the setbacks. If the mobile home receives a permit, then the RV may be occupied during the relocation or renovations to the mobile home and removed and unoccupied when work on the mobile home is finished. So the DRB should discuss and decide whether or not the zoning violation regarding the recreational vehicle was properly issued, and whether or not you agree with the corrective measures. Should I move on?
Yep.
Number 2, mobile home. This notice of zoning violation states evidence that a mobile home existed on the property from the mid-'80s or earlier to around 2011 when it was removed. Planning staff have not been able to locate an original permit for the mobile home, but it was listed in the 1992 grand list. Vermont law establishes a 15-year statute of limitations for municipalities to issue zoning violations. And this statute of limitation applies both to the uses of property and structures and improvements that violate municipal zoning regulations. The footprint from the mobile home at 1250 South Road is located within the 50-yard front setback, 50-foot front yard setback, measured from the right-of-way. Therefore, the former mobile home that was removed in 2011 was a legally non-conforming structure because it doesn't meet the town setback regulations and because it has existed for longer than 15 years without issuance of a zoning violation.
So are you saying in the past that was an illegal spot for that house? The old trailer that somehow that got permitted, someone went there and approved the lot being within your setback, like we had gone a variance over that permit in the 60s or the 50s?
It could be that it was.
I mean, it could be or it is. I'm trying to figure out what
Well,
we
we don't know
applied
because
for.
we don't have a record of that permit.
Wow.
So it could have been.
How does it Definitely-
violation if you don't have a record?
And we definitely didn't put it there overnight, so we're trying to find the original permit.
Hold on, we're gonna have lots of opportunity to have in exchange, okay? So, so if we could afford Melinda the right to give her staff overview, and trust me, you're gonna have lots of opportunity to have back and forth, okay? These are Vermont neighbors talking to Williston neighbors talking to Williston neighbors, okay?
But no neighbors talked to us, we've seen the board, but.
So, continue, please, Melinda.
Okay, so the mobile home was there for more than 15 years, and then it got removed. It was a legally non-conforming structure when it was there. Close to the mobile home, right, west of South Road, there's an existing barn that's been added onto over the years, with the most recent construction permit issued in 1991. This structure is also legally non-conforming because it's within the 50-foot front yard setback, but its original construction predates the zoning regulations on setbacks. And permits were issued for subsequent additions to the barn. So the installation.
So why are you raising the barn issue then?
Because just as an example of another structure on that property that's legally non-conforming, and that I thought you might have questions about there being, why the barn was so close to the road.
Okay, thank you.
So the installation of a new mobile home on the existing footprint of the former mobile home would be a violation of the Williston Unified Development Bylaw, because it constitutes development for which a permit's not been issued. 2, the mobile home's location encroaches into the 50-foot setback from South Road. And 3, the landowner no longer has the right to replace the former mobile home in its original location in the setback because it was not replaced within a year of being removed. Staff recommends, also stated in the notice of zoning violation and follow-up letter, that these violations can be rectified by removing the mobile home from the property or applying for a permit. The mobile home can be approved with an administrative permit with submittal of a state water and wastewater permit and a site plan depicting compliance with all applicable dimensional standards and setbacks.
Okay, so the important thing there, I think, is that there is a path for approval, but not in its current location. Okay, so I'm just making that point. Continue, Melinda.
And Melinda, I got one question for
Sure.
you. Are you using recreational vehicle and mobile home as interchangeable terms?
No.
You are not.
There's 2 different structures.
There's 2 different structures.
Yeah. One is.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so also I'm recommending that this mobile home can be approved administratively. Neither discretionary permit nor growth management review is required to approve this mobile home. And that's chiefly the way that the bylaw defines parcels, and that this where the mobile home is placed right now is on a parcel that doesn't have an existing dwelling on it. So it would be allowed one dwelling just like any other parcel.
Okay.
And because the cycle property is split by South Road and East Road, it actually consists of 3 separate parcels. So let's see. I think I've pretty much gone over what I need to go over there. Yeah, and through conversations with staff, the appellants have raised a couple of different points, saying that they're renovating the mobile home and not living in it. But the definition of a dwelling under WDD 4635 does not distinguish between unoccupied or occupied dwellings. And even if it's not presently occupied, the mobile home is still a dwelling under the regulations, still requires a permit. And then they've also asserted that farm worker housing is exempted from local zoning permit requirements, and that for that reason, the mobile home doesn't need a local zoning permit. Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets definition of a farm structure excludes dwellings for human habitation. And so dwellings are not, basically not exempt from local zoning. Every other type of structure is, but not dwellings. So the DRB should discuss and decide whether or not the zoning violation regarding the mobile home was properly issued and whether or not you agree with the recommendations.
Okay. Okay, your turn. Floor is yours.
We weren't under any understanding that we were in any violations of compliance over a 17-day move-in over the camper, if someone's staying in a camper on our property until just this October. The camper's been there since April. This is just being brought up as of October. So the whole 17 thing, we're really glad you brought it up to us. But for our seasonal help, and just like Vermont's having trouble with their seasonal help in housing, and the Vermont Ag has been pushing forward with the state about giving us compliance for our seasonal help to show up, whether it's RV just for the seasonal picking apples as a southerner up to Vermont in the summertime. As far as trailer goes, you said we were repairing it. We had this pad, it's already an existing lot. I understand the dwelling has been gone since 2011. The concrete pad has not, though. Same with the power outlet that came in there and the septic that existed. So I was under the understanding as long as that concrete had stayed in there, then technically that blueprint of that lot exists already. Last I knew, we would have to come in and get a permit to put a trailer on there when it was time to actually apply for occupancy. But considering we don't even know if this trailer's staying there, we weren't really coming in to live there. This was just specifically dropped off because it's a 70-foot trailer on a 70-foot pad. It won't get stuck while they're working on it. We would like to see something go up there, and we obviously see that there's a pad existing in conformance. Otherwise, I can't imagine the town would have permitted and take taxes for over 20-something years on the property, including the driveway cut that you want me to apply for now that's already been paid for and been used for the last, I don't know, how many years that field's been going in and out of Danny Waldo, 60, 70? All right, so that driveway's already been there for, so I'm a little bit irritated to be charged twice for something that's already been paid for once, or even asked to. And I don't think any of you have been on our property to measure that trailer yet, because it's right at 50 feet. So I don't understand this compliance. You guys are upset about our pad being there. It's been there since, well, we didn't get a notice when you guys put in this law in what, 2000, and when did this law come in, that after we take something off its foundation or destroy a foundation, that you only have 1 year to replace it? When did that law get in? Was it before or after the trailer was removed?
Any historical perspective on when that provision in the bylaw was implemented?
Definitely in there as of 2008, but it probably existed in prior iterations of the bylaw because state law rules around nonconformities are probably more long-standing. And I'm sure that the bylaw before that had similar standings of once a nonconforming structure goes away, there's a limited amount of time.
I can't speak for Williston, but I know South Burlington has the exact same law.
It's in state.
That's been in existence for
A
decades.
really long time, yeah.
So
Hypothetically, if to kind of drill down a little bit on the pad that you brought up, if there was a residential property that was non-conforming and it was demoed, but the foundation remained, what would that dwelling be considered to be completely gone, or?
Last I knew, the foundation was in the
Oh,
ground
oh,
and hadn't been moved. It's
Hold on. So, so can
That's
you,
my understanding that, I mean, our bylaw says when it's destroyed, then if it's gone for longer than a year, you don't have the right to replace it in its current configuration.
so if the foundation remains, it's considered, the structure is considered completely gone at that point? What do you,
My understanding is the house is considered gone, so you can't rebuild the house. The pad is still there, but the house is gone. We could, you know, if you'd like, we could request a legal opinion about this.
I would like one.
Can I say something? I can't talk very loud. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I do have an email from Bruce Hoare telling me that the right-of-way on South Road is 49.5 feet. So from the center line of the road, the right-of-way is 24 3/4 foot to either side. That trailer is beyond 25 feet from the center of the road.
It's not the center line you're measuring.
So again, there's
It's not
no
the center,
thing
you're not
about
measuring
being
from the
too close
center
to
line.
road. Just
That's what Bruce wrote to me.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any difference.
That's the right of way, but
That's
then.
the right of way.
You have a
It has no
road,
bearing.
correct. You have a road in the center of the line. You go left to right. You have 50 feet, which would mean you have 25
And that-
feet to your
and that,
left
in
of
this case,
center
has no bearing.
and 25 to the right.
Understood. In
So
this
once
case, it has
that,
no bearing.
once we throw that line out,
Can you please explain to me why?
That's a simple right of way of the road. It's not the setback.
I get that.
Oh.
So that's
And
the
then-
25 feet, and then from that 25 feet, you're saying 50 feet beyond the part that, the 25 of the road. Which last I knew, we were about 2.5 feet from that mark. Has anybody been out there yet to measure it? Has anybody on this board been out here yet to measure this pad? So you're telling me that I'm out of compliance.
That is the job of staff. The board,
But I'm asking, the job staff is here along with the board, so I'm asking, has anybody yet been?
you won't see the board out there measuring your.
No, I did ask for a site visit though, from the board. That probably didn't get passed down to you though. That was the day I'd mentioned where ag normally has a little bit more leeway. But I physically came down here and I haven't seen anybody there yet to come and look. We've invited you. I'm sorry if you didn't get the memo.
So I have a question for staff. What measures were taken to determine that the existing structure was in the right of way?
When I issued the original zoning violation, my research was based on using the parcel data online.
That yellow line, would that be your setback, just that 50 foot on both sides? That yellow line?
I'm aware that those yellow lines are approximate because it's a digital file overlaid on aerial imagery. It's not 100% accurate. Where that concrete pad was, it looked like it was well within the 50-foot setback. Last week, Mary did come into the office and we talked about the right-of-way measurement. I found a plat recorded in land records that shows South Road to be 66-foot wide right-of-way, 4 rods, with that line going through that existing willow tree. So those were the measurements that I recommended working off of to find where that edge of right-of-way is to then measure that 50 feet.
And you measure the 50 feet off of the approximate yellow line, right?
Off the approximate yellow line, yep.
And to the east toward the road, that is the right of way of the road. That is not a right, so you don't measure from the center line of the road, you measure from the setback. And so there's a question of where that yellow line is on your property. But it is, you're not measuring from the road, you're measuring the center of the road. You are measuring from well off the road, 50 feet back.
I understand that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so I just drew a line to basically represent that from the town right of way.
We can all clearly see the pad that's still existing. It's not removed. It's not been ever removed or replaced, dismissed, dismantled.
But nobody's living on it.
I get that.
Okay, but that's really the kicker. That's the trigger. Sir, hang on. That's the trigger. It's not, the house is gone, nobody's living there, and you got a year.
We'll follow more with that. Because like I said, normally when you have a foundation, that's your house, that's your blueprint. Doesn't matter about what's beyond the ground up, that's
It does.
60 feet,
So,
for instance. So I get
legal
that.
opinion.
Foundation,
It's,
your footing.
Absolutely. Yep. So we're gonna get a legal opinion on that topic. Because it's very germane here.
Very what?
It's very germane here. It's very applicable. So, we'll get the questions in a moment, sir. So we will not forget you. Okay, so, floor is still yours.
And I do, Al, I have a question for you. About where that green line was.
You say green or blue?
Right there was that where the RV was?
Correct, on that pad.
On that pad. And that's gone?
The
Or is it
RV
still
is
there?
just off to the, we've moved it, it's not gone.
Okay.
Beside it now.
Is it part of this discussion still, or have you, is it still?
I mean, they're using it as an office.
Is it,
It's who we
is anybody
leased it.
living in it?
Living in it? No. Using it as an office? Yes.
All right. And that's part of this, that is still part of,
But again, if they're not living in it, the camper can stay, correct? Last I knew.
it's not.
It could be
supposed-
outside, it could
It's
be-
not it's not supposed to be an occupied dwelling,
I understand that.
whether
I'm
it's an
using,
office, whether it's an office or
Out of the setback.
yeah, and it's gotta be out of the setback.
well, that one's definitely out of the setback, so that can be moved.
Where is
right-
it? Where is it still nearby?
It's nearby. It was on the pad, now you're.
It's out of the 50-foot setback?
Yeah.
Okay. Back in there? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else to add before I open it up to DRB questions?
You guys want me to move my barn back too?
That's not part of this discussion.
Well, yeah, actually was. It's because it's within your setback.
So anything that we touch is within a setback.
It's
And
not part of the zoning violation.
so if my barn blew down and I don't take the concrete off, but my barn gets blown down by the 70-mile-an-hour wind tonight, it takes me 3 years to come up with the money. As long as I apply for a permit within the first year, we can put it back up. But if we don't have the money the first year, it's tough shit.
I think as long as you apply for a permit within the first year, then you would have the right to replace it.
The barn is a tricky one too, because a true agricultural barn does have some exemption. So say the house blew down, you have a year from that date to get a permit to replace it, and then that permit's good for 3 years. So non-conforming structures retain their right to their footprint, same size, same location. If it's gone for more than a year, then that footprint vesting tends to go away. A barn, because it's an agricultural structure, can be exempt from local rules like
But
setbacks.
at what point was this thing ever a conformed property?
It wouldn't.
So everything is always a non-conforming?
Yep. That's correct.
If it's
Correct.
in that 50-foot setback.
Yeah, it's non-conforming. As long as you keep on using it, you're farming it, and you're running your farm out of it. Yeah, you can keep on using it. But the minute it goes away, and it goes away for more than a year, and I think that's the question we're going to ask the attorney. We're lay people. We're not attorneys. But we can read the bylaw. But the attorney was going to weigh in on that. That's the answer
Because
that
a
we're
lot
going
of
to
us,
ask.
a lot of us, when we take our buildings down, or for whatever reason, if we do decide to remove a building, we leave the foundation in for a strict reason.
Understand, but that is something that the attorney for the town will answer. Okay.
DRB members, questions? Dave? Lisa?
Okay.
Good? Anything, Scott?
Good.
Okay, Sir, if you would come up to the table, please, and state your name. Your,
Got him out here. Miracle.
your name and address. For
My name is Denny Lewis. I have a farm that abuts their farm. I own 200 acres. I own 120 actually on the south side of the interstate. First of all, I think it sounds like that parcel has an address. Is that correct? Okay, so my farm, I have a sugar house, I have other things. There's no other addresses. It's just one where my home is and where my barn is. So I'm not sure why that parcel has an address if it's not a parcel. The other thing is, I do believe if that concrete is there, that's considered part of that structure. That's my opinion, and obviously you sound like you're gonna find out legally what the deal is. The other piece, these folks have worked their life for this farm. They've conserved 300 plus acres in Williston, and they've sacrificed a major amount of money to do that so that they could continue to keep this in agriculture. That whole parcel is never going to be developed because it is conserved. So all the property around that trailer or mobile home or whatever is never going to be developed. So it isn't going to affect anybody else because it can't. I mean, it's conserved. It's always going to be conserved. It can't be changed. So I just feel like that should be taken into account. These people are trying to do what they can to keep the farm going, to keep it open for everybody in Williston's benefit, not just theirs. And I think that should be looked at highly. You know, it's pretty impressive for anybody to do that in this town. I'm 66, close to 67. I grew up here in town, and I've actually done the same thing with my farm. I conserved the farm because I didn't want any more development in it. And these folks are just trying to get by. They're not trying to do anything crazy. They thought they were doing the right thing. They thought that because the foundation was there, that they had the right to put that trailer in. I think you have to be able to work with them. I think that's what they're looking for. I think they can sound a little testy because they feel like, you know, it's their property and blah, blah, blah. But I think they're very open to trying to work it out with you folks and try to figure out what can work for both parties. And that's what I would like to see. So as a resident of Williston for a long time, I really feel like there's no reason people can't work together to resolve an issue. And that 50-foot, whatever it is, if it's a foot one way or the other, I don't see that as a big deal. When I grew up in this town, we had 5 members on the select board. We didn't have this board. None of this stuff existed. And that was probably prior to that mobile home being there. And half of those people on that board were dairy farmers. And you don't hear of that anymore. But please listen to what I've got to say, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Denny brought up something I want to reiterate here. The lot is the address. You guys sent a letter to that address knowing that it wasn't even an existing and obviously there's no mailbox there. There used to be a mailbox there. It has 4 points because it was taxed. It has 4 boundaries. We would be the other 3-sided landowners of that 4 sides from the road. So mailing people 20 letters for something that's already pre-existed and it's already been approved and has been there, mailing all around the 320 acres seems a little foolish, considering that it's already been a lot. A partial lot. I mean, it's got a tax ID number. It has to have some sort of acreage behind it. It definitely doesn't overshadow the 300 acres of the property of 1050 or 1033 would be the full farm complex. And then we have 3 lots inside of that. We have the White House being lot 1, which is actually not conserved. That's a 5 acres out of the conservation. The greenhouse would be in the conserved lot, and then that is to be if the farm was ever divided, Mary wouldn't have to sell her house. The greenhouse would go with it, with that side of the road, and that trailer lot goes to the east or the west side of the road for housing if they were ever to divide. In their plan on retirement, with coordinates with Vermont Land Trust, these have already been predetermined. We have it all. I don't understand why you guys don't have it, but we already have that in writing. So this lot is key, and it was a big key when we did sign over the rights, because that was, again, it is the lot there for our help. It's been there from day one. We did not remove everything. The trailer left on its wheels. We put one back on it on wheels. But the concrete, the foundation has never been removed. I know that states and been redundant. As Denny said, we didn't realize that when you took a trailer off from it, and to my knowledge, foundation is concrete, it's the ground. Anything above it is structural, so be it. But we have not removed the foundation of that house. And that is like that taken into consideration. I'd understand it if it was been ripped out, all field septic had been ripped out and removed, and the power had been striped from that. And you guys say, well, 1 year we have the right to retain and take it all back from it. And that lot doesn't exist anymore. I'm curious, can we actually get some lot sizes on this?
I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Sorry. On June 1st, my dad will have been there for 50 years. If this trailer lot was such a big deal, why wasn't it brought up sooner?
Staff?
You mean,
You mean
Because-
why wasn't this notice of
Yeah.
violation?
Why was,
Hold on. Why wasn't this notice of violation issued earlier when this was, had been in place for years? Is that your question?
yes.
Staff?
Because it was non-conforming.
No, I think they're talking about once the trailer was removed.
Always living there.
because when it was removed, it wasn't a violation until something was put back.
Right, and how long has the trailer been, was the current trailer put back in place?
I don't know, in the spring, I'm guessing.
No, the
September.
camper was put in the spring, which is where the initial violation came in, which didn't get brought up until September. So we're talking April, May, June, July, August, September. We almost got 6 or 7 months of nothing. And then we put a trailer on that pad, and then we got a notice within 2 weeks of being in violation of the camper.
Not to make light of it, but the wheels of government move slowly.
Yeah, and.
Sure didn't seem to move
and
slowly
to
from
put it-
there.
Mary, to put it in the context of 50 years is unfair on your part. That's that's clouding the issue unfairly.
Why? Because it's still in the town setback. That is what the big issue really is.
The issue,
At one point in time, when the trailer was there for 50 years or however many long years it was
an allowed nonconformance.
That's exactly right. It predated the town zoning.
Right.
It was an allowed nonconforming use.
right.
So, and it's kind of the third or fourth time around, but the minute that trailer disappeared, 1 year after, it is no longer allowed. Understand that we're talking in circles at the moment, and that this isn't going anywhere until we get a letter from, determination from the attorney, at which point we can pick this discussion up again.
Well,
So I think, correct me if you see this differently, but I think because we're doing a do loop here, I think this is a good breaking point.
I don't see it going any further.
Would you agree with that?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Members of the audience, any further comments? No?
So this will totally be determined by the attorney for the town?
That,
And there's no other way around any of this to make it happen?
there's,
Just tell them about the variations and the fact there aren't any. We are simply, using, we're not interpreting anything. It's what's in the bylaw.
Well, there's several factors in the zoning violation that the DRB has to rule on. And one of which pertains to this foundation. And so I would not characterize our decision point as being solely dependent upon the legal opinion. It's a component of multiple facets that we have to consider.
So there'll be another hearing?
There's not going to be another hearing. We're going to actually let me ask staff how that works. So we're going to ask, we as a board are going to ask for a legal opinion on the foundation piece. So if you could walk the board and the appellant through what happens next.
Yeah, so the board can decide to close the hearing if they feel like they have enough information from you and from have given the public a chance to be heard, and you can go into deliberations, getting the legal opinion, or you can decide to continue if you would like to discuss further with the applicant once you have that legal opinion.
So we're going to continue and request that the staff get a legal opinion. And then when that legal opinion is received, then we'll get back together again.
Can we expect the legal opinion to be mailed to us as well?
So
Is that-
recent recommendations from town council is that the DRB does not need to make, and in some certain circumstances, should not make the legal opinion public because it's attorney-client, privilege attorney-client communications.
Attorney-client being the town, being the public, correct?
The town and the town attorney. So the development review board and the town attorney would be the client and the board. So the DRB does not have to make
When
that.
did that start?
That came up recently.
That came up recently with the NECS
Wouldn't make
thing.
any
So it's,
sense.
I'm going to go on record to say that's sheer idiocy.
Thank you.
That's dumb, because you're talking about somebody's property rights and you're talking about somebody, and whether we all know how this, how this is going to come out or not come out, you're still talking about somebody's property rights.
I mean, to just clarify that, staff can summarize the legal opinion. We can tell you what it is, but we've been advised not to share the correspondence and not to share the actual written legal opinion because that subjects us to having any legal opinion not be considered. We may be considered to have waived our right to, privacy regarding legal opinions. If we-
So-
Last I knew, the town was municipal to the public. I didn't realize you guys had your own private.
You may not see the actual correspondence from the attorney, but you're gonna know what it says. Because we're gonna tell you. It's not gonna be verbatim, but we don't make this stuff up. That's the reason why we're asking for a legal opinion. Okay, and so that's gonna be a guiding template that we are gonna share the principle of what the attorney's opinion is. But you're not gonna see the document. We don't control that. The DRB doesn't. Okay? You can disagree with that. That's the way it is.
That's news to us. but
I'm actually on,
That's
right
news.
beside Scott Riley on this one. Last I knew, the public hires the town as public people working for us. I didn't realize this was an entity. That you get private, legally advice, that you get legal, privately advice to your town without giving it to the citizens makes, boy, no rapport at all. I mean, it'd be like having a select board with no minutes. Find that just hard to believe, and I agree with Scott Riley. I guess that's where I'm sending that. Jesus, sorry. I'd like to go to bed. So I'd like to.
Okay, so, we're gonna continue to a date uncertain. It's 9/10. And we're gonna request that legal opinion. And then, once received, then we will, reconvene and we'll notify you, when that would be.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go into deliberative session at 9:10. Okay, welcome back to the Williston Development Review Board. It's 9:49. The DRB is out of deliberations. Is there a motion for DP 24-11?
Yes, as authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, David Turner, move the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff and the advisory boards required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of January 8th, 2024, accept the recommendations for DP 24-11 and authorize this application to move forward to discretionary permit review.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Lisa seconds it. Any discussion?
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. We are going to strike 2B on that.
Okay. Lisa, does your second still stand?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, yay or nay? Lisa?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
The chair is yay. 4 in favor, none opposed. Motion carries. Is there a motion for DP 24-12?
Yes. As authorized by the WDB 6.6.3, I, Lisa Braden Harder, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff and the advisory boards required to comment on this application at public hearing of January 2024, accept the recommendations of DP 24-12 and authorize this application to move forward to discretionary permit review with the one comment on item 3D. We want to retain item 3D.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Scott seconds it. Any discussion? Hearing none. Yay or nay? Lisa?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
Chair's a yay, 4 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 12th, 2023?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Lisa seconds it. Any discussion? In favor, yay or nay? Lisa?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
Chair's yay, 4 in favor, none opposed. Meeting minutes are approved. Is there any other business to bring forth tonight? Staff? No?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Is
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.